I used to wake up every morning with a tightness in my chest, like I had to prove something to the world before I even opened my eyes. The pressure to be more successful, more composed, more productive, consumed my thoughts before I even had my first sip of coffee. I would scroll through my phone and see everyone else thriving, their perfect homes, their glowing smiles, their highlight reels, while I was still in my robe trying to find the energy to face the day. It took me years to realize that I wasn't actually falling behind. I was just listening to the wrong voice. There is a voice that lives in the background, quiet but persistent, that tells you you're not enough. That voice is not your truth. It's your conditioning. It told me I had to be thinner, louder, more organized, more successful, just to deserve kindness, joy, and peace. But I'm learning to speak back to that voice. The truth is, I am enough. Not because of what I do, not because of what others say, but because I breathe, I feel, I exist. There is a strength in knowing that you don't need to earn love, belonging, or rest. You were born worthy of all three. I remember sitting with Jordan on a bench at the park. I told him how I'd been feeling, small, invisible, exhausted. He listened without trying to fix it. And then he said something I'll never forget. He said, "You're not broken. You've just been carrying too many voices that were never yours." That hit me deep, because I had been carrying so much old criticism, outdated beliefs, imagined expectations. I realized I could set it down. Letting go didn't happen all at once. It came piece by piece, one boundary at a time, one honest no at a time, one brave yes to myself. I stopped pretending I was okay when I wasn't. I stopped performing. I started healing. Elise told me, "You're not too much, and you've never been not enough." I let those words wash over me like medicine. For the first time, I allowed myself to believe that who I am is not a problem to fix, but a soul to honor. Confidence doesn't come from perfection. It comes from compassion, the kind you give yourself when no one else sees the struggle. Marcus, a wise friend of mine, once told me, "You've always had the light. You just forgot where the switch was." That stuck with me, because I wasn't lacking. I was dimming. I was hiding. And now I choose to shine. To anyone listening who has ever felt like they weren't enough, hear me when I say this. You don't need to hustle for your worth. You don't need to shrink for others to feel comfortable. You don't need to apologize for existing in full color. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to love yourself deeply, even if you're still healing, even if you're still learning, even if it doesn't make sense to everyone around you. You are still worthy, still beautiful, still whole. Not someday, now. Say it with me, even if it's a whisper. I am enough. I am enough. I am enough. Let those words settle into the bones of your day. Let them become the foundation you stand on. This is your reminder. You are enough. And that is the beginning of everything. And as you go through the rest of today, I want you to remember something. You do not need to wait for a special moment or a perfect version of yourself to claim your worth. You already have everything you need inside you. Give yourself grace. Give yourself space. And give yourself love. Because no matter what you've been told or what you've believed, this is your truth. You are enough, without apology. So walk forward today with courage. You belong. You always have. Always. I used to think healing was a straight line, that if I just read enough, prayed enough, or proved myself enough, I'd finally arrive at peace. But healing doesn't work like that. It's not linear. It's not always loud. Sometimes, healing looks like quietly choosing yourself in a moment when you would have abandoned yourself before. I started going to a women's group once a week. At first, I didn't say much. I was still unlearning the belief that silence made me stronger. But something shifted the day I shared. I said, "I'm tired of pretending I don't need help." And instead of judgment, I was met with nods, with understanding, with "me too." In that moment, I realized, sometimes the bravest thing we can do is let someone see our softness. Because pretending to be okay when you're not, that's not strength. That's survival. And I was ready to live, not just survive. One Sunday afternoon, Jordan invited me to a cookout. I almost said no. I was in my head too much. But I went. And I'm glad I did. We stood around the grill, joking about who made the best mac and cheese. There was music playing, kids running, and people just being. I hadn't felt that light in a long time. See? You belong here. You've always belonged. And I felt that. Not because I was performing. Not because I was perfect. But because I was present. Fully. And that was enough. Belonging isn't about fitting in. It's about showing up as you are and being met with love. And for so long, I was shrinking, editing, second-guessing, thinking I had to earn every glance, every seat at every table. But now I know, I don't have to shrink to be seen. I don't have to apologize for how I laugh too loud when I'm happy, or how I cry when something moves me. I get to be all of me, the full version, not the polished version. Elise reminded me of that when we met for coffee. She looked at me and said, "There's something different about you. You're glowing now." I smiled because I knew it wasn't makeup. It wasn't clothes. It was peace. It was acceptance. It was mine. You see, peace doesn't come when everything around you is perfect. It comes when you stop fighting who you are. When you embrace your rhythm, your story, your truth, even if it's still unfolding. Marcus told me a story once about an old tree in his neighborhood. It had grown crooked, branches bending in every direction, but it gave the most shade. He said, that tree grew how it needed to, and nobody ever tried to fix it. That's how I want to grow. Freely, authentically, without needing to look like anyone else's version of enough. So now, when the doubt creeps in, and yes, it still does, I do one thing. I return to myself. Sometimes that means turning off my phone. Sometimes it means dancing in my living room. Sometimes it means calling someone I trust and saying, "Can I just talk?" Connection is a lifeline. It reminds you that you're not alone in your becoming. We all need a witness to our growth, someone who sees us not for what we do, but for who we are becoming. That's why I no longer chase approval. I seek alignment. I seek peace. I seek people who don't need me to shrink to feel big. And I've found them. Last week, I stood in front of a small group at the community center and told my story. My voice shook a little, but I kept going. I told them about the mirror, the ache, the loneliness, and the light I found again. When I finished, someone in the back stood up and said, "Thank you. I thought I was the only one." And that truth, it changes everything. So today, if no one else tells you, let me be the one who does. You are enough. Not because of what you've done, but because of who you are. You are enough when you rest. You are enough when you speak up. You are enough when you make mistakes. You are enough when you shine. And yes, even when you struggle. This journey is not about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you are and standing in that truth with your shoulders back and your spirit open. So walk into this next moment, this next hour, this next breath, with your head held high. You don't need permission. You don't need to be fixed. You are already worthy. Maya's voice continues. The other day, I ran into someone I used to know well, someone from the version of me I've outgrown. She smiled, complimented my outfit, and then said, "Wow, you've really changed." I used to shrink under those words. But this time, I smiled right back and said, "Yes, I have." I walked away knowing something important. Growth is not always loud. Sometimes it's silent. Sometimes it's as simple as choosing not to explain yourself. There was a time when I would have rushed to justify who I've become. Now, I let my energy speak for me. You don't have to return to the places that didn't see your value. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away with grace, not bitterness, but clarity. I'm not who I was. And I'm not sorry about that. That night, I lit a candle, curled up on the couch, and wrote a letter to my past self. Not to shame her, but to thank her. She did the best she could. She was doing everything she could to survive, even when she was exhausted. In that letter I wrote, You don't need to be perfect to be lovable." That sentence stopped me. I stared at it for a while, because for most of my life, I believed I had to perform to be worthy of affection. but not anymore. Now I choose softness. I choose truth. I choose rest. And I refuse to apologize for that. Jordan called me the next day and asked if I wanted to join him and some friends for an afternoon hike. Normally, I'd make up an excuse. Too tired, too busy. But this time I said yes. And something about the breeze on my skin and the rhythm of our feet reminded me how alive I really am. Healing doesn't mean everything is perfect. It means you're showing up anyway. It means you let yourself be seen. You let joy find you, even when the past tries to chase you. That evening, we sat on a hillside as the sun set. No one was talking, just being, just breathing. And I looked around and realized this is peace. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of self. Later that week, Elise and I sat on my porch drinking tea. She asked me what I'm most proud of. I didn't talk about awards or degrees. I said, I'm proud I didn't give up on myself. That same night, I got a text from someone I hadn't spoken to in years, a man I once loved who never truly saw me. For a moment, I felt that old pull, that ache for validation. But I took a deep breath and didn't respond. Not every open door deserves your return. And silence can be a boundary. Silence can be a decision. That moment reminded me, growth often looks like not chasing what once wounded you. The next morning, I went to the community center to help set up chairs for a new support circle. As I looked around at the other women arriving, nervous, quiet, hopeful, I stood in front of the group and said, I don't have all the answers, but I do have my story. And if it helps even one of you feel less alone, it's worth telling. Heads nodded. Shoulders dropped. The room softened. Because when you speak from the heart, people feel it, not because you're perfect, but because you're real. And that's what I want my life to reflect now. Realness, resilience, and radical self-love. After the group ended, a woman named Bree came up to me. She had tears in her eyes. She said, I almost didn't come today, but now I'm glad I did. We hugged, and in that embrace, I felt something sacred. A reminder that healing multiplies when shared. I walked home slowly, letting the weight of the day melt off me. Birds were singing. The sky had that golden glow before dusk. And I whispered, thank you. Not to anyone in particular, but to life itself. Because even on the hard days, I'm still here. Still choosing softness over shame. Still choosing presence over performance. Still choosing myself. And that, more than anything, is the victory. Not who I impress. Not what I achieve. But how gently I can hold myself now. How kindly I can speak to the parts of me I used to hide. If you're listening and wondering if you'll ever feel whole again, let me be your reminder. You don't have to earn it. You just have to come home to yourself. One breath. One truth. One brave moment at a time. You are not too far gone. You are not too behind. You are not broken beyond repair. You are enough. Not when. Not if. Now. Always. Still.